What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another TnS Weekly Review. This week we'll be going over all the cool trades and bangers from the week, starting with Tuesday, September 2nd to Friday, September 5th. And I'll be skipping Monday because it was a bank holiday, it was a half day, and the average person just doesn't trade bank holidays. And so, I never count those within the stats. And it was an absolutely insane week this week. So be sure to stick around for all of the trades because it was a pretty crazy week. So let's just jump right into it. Okay, so here we are at our first setup, and this one comes from Tuesday, September 2nd at 1:11 p.m. We're focusing on this long setup here where the entry is basically this high that overlaps. So you would have entered here, and I know there's a short setup here, but truly, if you're taking the trades in chronological order, you would have got tagged in on the long first because the short setup forms as the long is getting tagged in. And so this one you could have held for basically 163 points to buy side because, buy side target, most people will be trying to catch a major play if you held a runner up for like 163 points. And it did run all the way up there. And it peaked about at 174 points. So just to show you guys that, it did take a little bit of time, but it did get there. And there's actually a couple of long setups along the way as well that also played out. And be sure to check the daily reviews to see those because it's all included. So you can see we did finally reach buy side, and then the trade peaked basically at 174 points right at 4 o'clock close because, no cheating. We don't want to hold a trade past 4 o'clock. This is 4 p.m. close, and it did peak basically at 174 points there. So pretty nice play. Let's go ahead and add that to our list. Okay, now moving on to our second setup. This one was also a 1-minute TnS play. This time we will be focusing on this short setup here. And, the entry was waiting to get tagged in. Gets tagged in there, and this one you could have held for about 60 points to sell side here. And then it peaked at about 133 points. So I'm just going to fast forward it here so we can see. You can see it did dump pretty nice there. And just to visualize 133 points, right about there is where it peaked at. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that to our list. Okay, now moving on to our third setup, it actually comes right after our second setup. There's a long right here that you could have taken. Now, of course, if you're in a runner, you're trying to get as many points as you possibly can, but maybe once we tag this long setup, maybe that's where you exit for your runner. But either way, if you weren't in anything, maybe you just took all that sell side there for 60 points. You probably were waiting for another setup, and this one was also a very nice play, 25-point stop. This one actually ran for about 124 points back to buy side, basically right where the short originally tagged in. So we have 124 points to buy side here. I'm just going to fast forward it. And it peaked at 130 right at 4 p.m. close. So right about there, you can see it did hit buy side and it peaked at the very top, basically at 130 points right there, as you can see. So it was a very, very nice play, basically catching, the short and the long for 1-minute TnS. So very, very impressive move for 1-minute TnS. And of course, there were plays in between. So if you want to see those, make sure you check the daily reviews. Let's go ahead and add this to our list, play number 3. Okay, so switching gears here for play number 4. This one was actually a 5-minute TnS short. So we're focusing on the short setup here. And this one was a very nice play because it basically caught high of day and it top ticked it. And you could have held this one for about 154 points to sell side from a pretty much a snipe at the very top there. And it was a very nice play. So just now to show you, it didn't get tagged in yet here, but it did get tagged in on the next candle. And this is all from the same day as well, from Wednesday. So the 1-minute and 5-minute had very nice plays. So of course there are other plays in there, but it did eventually get to its target. And this one peaked at about 206 points. So I'm just gonna put that there so you guys can see. Just fast forward it a bit. I think that was the peak right there. So you can see it did hit about 206 points. So a very, very nice play for play number 4. Let's go ahead and add that to our list. Okay, so moving on to play number 5. This one comes from the 5-minute TnS as well. Basically, as this one just got its sell side delivery there. This one is another short, and this one you could have held basically for about 54 points to the internal TP, and then it also peaked at 80 points, basically where the other one peaked for 206. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. You can see it got TP there, and then it peaked about at 80 points. So even if you didn't hold this first trade all the way through, you could have still caught a decent short as well for play number 5. So let's go ahead and add that to our list. Okay, so moving on to play number 6, we're focusing on this long setup here, and we're still on the 5-minute, so it's still 5-minute TnS, and I'm focusing specifically on this entry here because it's a version 2 entry, and this one ran for about 130 points to the data wick, basically all the way until 4 p.m. close. Now, of course, it did have 2 entries. Let me go back just a second. So it did have 2 entries, but since I recommend version 2, I'm just going to make it just slightly harder. You know, it's only a 6-point difference. But I recommend version 2, so I'm just going to keep track of version 2 here. And it does run for about 130 points up to a data wick that we had. If you look, scroll out and look all the way to the left, this wick way up here was actually a data wick. So you could have seen that and maybe tried to hold for that. Basically all the way until 4 p.m. close, and it was a pretty nice play. So I'm just going to fast forward it now. So the data wick actually was just barely missed. So I count this as 130 points basically at 4 p.m. close because at 4 p.m. we just missed it and then we hit it at 4:10. Some prop firms don't let you hold till 4:10, but it was still a really nice play. So let's go ahead and add that to our list. Okay, so jumping back down to the 1-minute time frame, 1-minute TnS. From the same day, Thursday the 4th, this time we're focusing on a long setup here. This one got tagged in right here, and you could have held this one for about 76 points to the buy side target, which was pretty much this high. Let's move this out of the way. So you can see this high for about 76 points there. It did get hit. And this one peaked at 207 points, basically all the way up to that data wick that the 5-minute also was able to hit. So zooming all the way out so we can see it a little bit better, just fast forwarding as well. This one was kind of a shame it didn't get tagged in there, but it did make its way all the way up to that data wick. And so as you can see, it basically peaked at 207 points because once again, we didn't hit the data wick high right at 4 p.m. close. This was basically the 4 p.m. candle right here. This one right there. You can see we just missed it barely, so we'll count that as peaking at 207 points. So once again, that's going to be play number 7. We'll go ahead and add that to our list. Okay, so moving on to our 8th play, still on the 1-minute TnS. This one comes from Friday the 5th. We're focusing on the short setup here using the higher entry. So say we entered right here. The TP was for about 30 points, but you could have held this one for about 206 or 203 points, sorry. So I'm just going to visualize it so you can see what it looks like. Basically just dumped all the way down about 203 points. So right about here, we'll call that the peak. Very, very nice play there. You could have held for about 203 points. So once again, that's going to be play number 8. So we'll go ahead and add it to our list. Okay, so moving on to play number 9. Right after this one basically peaks, it taps into a long setup. So we're focusing on this long setup right here from the same exact day. It basically caught low of day right here. So once again, it caught the short from back here at 10:20, and then it catches immediately the long right after. And so this long you could have held basically for this buy side target for 127 points. And yeah, let's just let it run here. 25-point stop. Could have held for this nice buy side target right here. You can see it did run for 127 points, and it basically peaked at 186 for a 4 p.m. close. I'm just going to play it out. 186 points, sorry. And once again, it did basically bottom tick low of day. So and please do not forget, it caught the short and the long. It's pretty crazy. So 1 minute TnS had a very, very nice week. And once again, make sure to check the daily reviews because it's all there. And so that basically leads us into 4 p.m. close right about here. You can see that's exactly where it peaked at, right at 4 p.m., 185 points, really about 186 at the very, very peak. So yeah, that's going to be play number 9. We'll go ahead and add that to our list. So moving back to when it hit buy side here, I do want to throw out some honorable mentions because that was pretty much our last official play, number 9. Do want to talk about some honorable mentions because all throughout this 1 minute TnS actually went on a 6 trade win streak, which is pretty crazy. So say you're looking for this buy side right after it hits. There's another long setup here, and this we're just counting it out here, the 6 plays. So this will be play number 1 for 14 points. Really, it's for 16. It's really because we swept this high, then we tag the entry. The indicator is kind of glitch here in saying that this is a TP, but really the TP is the candle itself. So this one would have been for about 16 points. Once again, you can check the daily review to see a little bit deeper of an explanation, but that's pretty much the reason why. So that's play number 1 there. That gets TP. Then fast forwarding a little bit, we get play number 2 there for about 29 points using the lowest entry. That's one that gets tagged in. So that's 29 points. That's play number 2. Then we have play number 3 here that gets TP for 22. Then we have, that wasn't set up, but then we have this one, play number 4, that's trying to get TP down here. And then we, as play number 4 is trying to get TP, we get play number 5 right here that gets TP instantly. This one, the TP is correct because it basically taps the FPG, the entry, and then gets TP on the same candle. So that's 4 and 5 right here. And then, you know, play number 4 got TP eventually. So moving on just a little bit, and then we get play number 6 right here that also won. And so zooming out here, it looks pretty choppy, but all throughout this kind of chop, TnS is getting 6 wins in a row. And if you combine all those together, it's 115 points. So that's going to be our honorable mention, basically play number 10, just as an honorable mention. And that all was in the span of from 11:10 a.m. to 12:45 p.m. 6 wins in a row. Okay, so switching gears again to the 5 minute. This will be our final play. It's also an honorable mention. This one happened on Friday as well. A pre-market setup using the lowest entry here as the entry. You could have got basically 50 points to the TP. So I'm just going to play it out here. You can see it basically, sorry, a little bit too far. Basically bottom ticked the entry. You can see just barely tapped the entry. Then it flew and it peaked at about 103 points there, right about here. We'll just count that as a peak. It did double sweep, but then it basically just came all the way back down. But still a very, very nice play. That's another honorable mention. That's going to be our final play. That's going to be play number 11. Let's go ahead and add it to the list. Pretty insane week for TnS for a short week. Remember, I'm not tracking the 5 minute TnS anymore, but I'm still tracking the 1 minute TnS from now on. And it actually had its biggest week since tracking started with 222 points, 8.8 R. That's 23 wins, 11 losses, and that's 34 trades total. So a really, really crazy week. And once again, guys, feel free to check out the daily reviews if you want to see every single play. But yeah, pretty great week for TnS. So that's going to wrap it up for this weekly review. And yeah, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.